My son started cooking bizarre recipes. My son is nonverbal autistic. I love him more than anything in the world. But it's tough. Really tough. When he turned 18, his mother and I got into a colossal argument. She wanted to send him to a home, and I refused. I couldn't stand the thought of him being abused, which I heard was rampant in places like that. We fought for months until one day we had our final fight. If you want to spend the rest of your life taking care of him, then you can do it alone, she told me. I haven't seen her since. To this day, I know I made the right decision, but that doesn't make it any easier. You know, more than anything, I wish he could just tell me what he wants. Often, he would have these meltdowns screaming and crying, and I would do anything to just give him what he wanted, if only I knew what that was. It was about 6 months ago when he got obsessed with cooking. He'd simply say, "Chef, chef, chef," over and over. Maybe he picked it up from a show or YouTube or something. I'm not sure. Either way, I decided it was about time for me to teach him how to cook. We started with eggs, but he got so frustrated and just started covering his ears, screaming, "Okay, not eggs." We tried making banana bread, smoothies, even pasta. Each time his reaction was the same. I was running out of ideas until one day he handed me a note. It was a shopping list that confused me for several reasons. First, as far as I knew, my son couldn't write anything outside of his name, let alone a full shopping list in perfect cursive. Second, it was the most bizarre list of ingredients I had ever seen. Anchovies, sauerkraut, horseradish. I had no idea what to make of it, but he was persistent, so begrudgingly I agreed. I knew it was a giant waste of time, money, and food, but it seemed to make him happy, so why not? When we got home, he was ecstatic. He immediately ran to the kitchen and started mixing the ingredients. Both the look and smell were repulsive, but he carried on, happy as a clam. When he was finished, he covered the disgusting mixture with saran wrap and placed it in the fridge before going off to play Xbox. As odd as this whole experience was so far, I hadn't seen him smile that big since his mother was around. I checked the fridge the next morning, ready to throw the mixture out. To my horror, it was empty. It had been licked clean and neatly placed in the sink. I yelled for him to come upstairs, and sternly told him he could not eat the things he makes, and that he would get sick. Surely enough, he had diarrhea for days after that. I tried to push the whole ordeal out of my mind before he came to me with another note a few days later. The ingredients somehow were worse than before. Raw beef, gummy bears, hot sauce, etc. I tried to refuse, but he persisted. I would indulge in his cooking, but I was throwing it out immediately after. As soon as he finished, he wrapped it and tried to place it in the fridge. I grabbed it from him. "Hey, that was fun, but we have to throw this away now. It's not good to eat," I told him. He had an absolute meltdown, kicking, screaming, crying, biting. It quite literally lasted over an hour before I finally got him calmed down in his room. After coming back upstairs and finally disposing of the putrid mess, I kept running the situation over in my mind. Most of all, I focused on the note. I hadn't thought to test him to make sure he was truly the one who wrote it. The next day I had him sit down and try and write out a few basic words, but he, as before, was only able to write his name in block lettering. I dismissed him as my gut boiled with anger. Someone had given him this note, tricked him into making these recipes and eating them. I was going to find out who, and kick the ever-loving shit out of them. It was summer, so it wasn't someone at school. He never left the house without me, so it must have been someone in the neighborhood. Probably that piece of shit Mitchell from down the street. I went out and bought a dozen security cameras. For 3 sleepless nights, I stared out at the tree line, trying to catch a glimpse of whatever bastard was giving these notes to my son. On the 3rd night, I realized I had been looking entirely in the wrong place. Slowly, so slowly at first I thought I may have been imagining it, the lid to my septic tank slid off. Out of it emerged a man, covered from head to toe in thick, slimy muck. He crawled underneath my back porch, obscured by shadows. After a minute, he used a stick to push a note underneath my back mat. He crawled back to the septic tank, knocking softly on my son's window before quickly jumping back in and sealing it. My son then got up, went to the back porch, and grabbed the note before returning to his room and placing it under his pillow. Disgusted, shocked, repulsed. I don't know the words to fully describe how I felt at that moment. I don't know if the words exist in the English language. When I regained my composure, I ran to his room, ripped off the pillow, and found the note. Looking at the window, I saw the brown streaks where the man had knocked. I ran, grabbed my shotgun, and went through the front door to sneak around the back. It was a hot summer night, and I felt the sweat start to bead up on my skin almost immediately. For a moment, I wondered what the state law was for shooting someone hiding in your septic tank. In the next moment, I decided I didn't give a shit and this sick fuck was going to die. I crept over to the tank, my barrel focused on it the entire time. After flicking on my flashlight, I kicked off the lid, shining the light on the chunky scum layer. For a few moments, nothing happened, until I saw a few bubbles rise to the surface. My finger was tightening around the trigger as the water exploded upward, showing me in that unholy filth. Before I knew it, the man had pushed me to the ground and was sprinting towards the tree line. As soon as I regained my balance, I unloaded every shot I had. Then I reloaded and did it again. The cops were there shortly, given they received over a dozen calls of rapid-fire shotgun blasts in the middle of the night. I explained everything to them as they looked at me with incredulousness and disgust. A few more cars arrived with dogs, but they never found him. I'm not a wealthy man, but I spent every last dollar I had hooking up that house to city sewer and paying a company to come with an excavator to rip that entire fucking septic system out of my yard. I still get ill thinking of my son cooking up concoctions for that bastard to feast on his excrement. I tried my best to forget, to try and wipe it from my memory. That was until I found a package at my door containing $10,000 and a note saying, "For my little chef."